Good morning and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we'll have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by the Lewis Herridge. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Pete. Thank you for having me. It's good to finally get this going.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. I mean, it's technically we've been throwing a few curveballs, so it's great to have you on here. So
absolutely,
give everyone, all our listeners, a bit of background. So Lewis Herridge is AKA the Outdoor Bloke. He's health and adventure coach, offering a back to basics revival of the body and the mind. Lewis is a mountain leader, bushcraft and survival instructor, ultramarathon trail runner, and primal health coach. Lewis works with the uninspired adventurer who feels sluggish and unsettled. He harnesses the power of nature, not just Mother Nature, but our own human nature, both forgotten requirements in modern life, to foster optimal health and well-being. Lewis, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent. I'm pleased to be here, Pete, and finally get this one rolling.
Good. So tell us, we'll start with an easy one. What does Fire in the Belly mean to Lewis?
Okay, yeah. I have definitely thought about this, probably too much more than I probably should have, but there you go. That's how I roll. Fire in the belly, motivation, isn't it? I think for me, it's what motivates me. I have put some time into that in the build up to this, but also I've contemplated that for myself for many years. So, for me, it's very much about being the best version of myself naturally. And I think that is the key ingredient there, naturally, because I recognize, it's my deep belief that we as humans have become a little bit misaligned with how we're intended to live. I sort of, we have got a lot of resources within us that aren't utilized or remembered, let alone put to use. So actually, that's been quite an inspiring thing for me over the last few years to work through that myself. So that I believe is the fire in my belly naturally.
And how long have you had it? Has it always been there for you? Is it something that's really evolved in the last couple of years, or what's been your journey with it?
Yeah, it's definitely always been there, but it's only in the last few years that I've realized the power of it and actually gone and stepped much deeper into it, sort of like owned it for myself, if that makes sense. So, I mean, if you want to look at the backstory, I grew up in the concrete jungle of London, so talking about this nature, like I grew up in a place that was quite detached from nature, actually. And as I got older, I always enjoyed scouts and all that sort of stuff, getting outdoors, camping, just playing on the streets, that sort of thing. But as soon as I got to the age where I felt the pull of the city, my friends, my family, other family members were sort of being pulled into that lifestyle that comes with a big city life. And I didn't want that, whatsoever. So I sort of rejected that, quite sort of flat out rejected that. And cut a long story short, I moved from London to a place called Buxton, which, if you don't know where Buxton is, it's sort of like a small town in the middle of the Peak District, and it was like going back in time. But I absolutely loved that. I sort of thrived. I felt myself begin to thrive there. I worked for many years in the bushcraft industry, the outdoor industry, teaching people and taking people all around the world off the beaten track to places like Uganda, Tanzania, in various places in South America. So I started filling my own cup in that way. Working with people, I was just drawn to that lifestyle, but really back to basics types of thing. And I saw firsthand how powerful it was for the people I was working with. But then this is the critical bit, is a few years back, I stepped quite quickly out of that. So I'd established this, lifestyle for myself for 10 years that really empowered me and tapped into that. And then I sort of stepped away from that, and I, for various reasons, I basically went into the typical rat race type life, a 9-to-5 job, Monday to Friday, weekends off, what most people typically experience, really. And I quite quickly realized that my body, my mind started spiraling downwards. And that was where I had to break out of that to some extent. I realized I was, conscious enough to realize what was happening. It took a while, but I set myself this rewilding mission, a personal rewilding mission. And so what that basically involved was, first off, it was just an excuse to get out, get active, sort of start trying to shake some of this negativity off within me. And then that started with exercise, and it went into a lot of other areas, which I'm sure we can get into. But like, that was, for me, the last few years has been about really owning that, rewilding myself, going to wild places, but reconnecting with the wild nature that is within me as well, that's within all of us, actually, that we've forgotten in the hustle of modern life. So, yeah,
what
that
is
answers your question.
Yeah, and it does. I mean, what do you think it was that whenever you went back into, sort of, let's call it sort of the corporate lifestyle, let's call it, so, not sort of 9-to-5 and that aspect, what do you think you lost doing that? And because it's interesting, you've seen it both ways, right? You've been there, you left, you went back, and you've left again, and what's been the lessons, I suppose?
Joy. That's one of the key things, actually, and that, because that's what I was sort of searching for when I was in that, so that period of time where I was not, that rat race, the corporate life type thing that you're talking about, I call that the indoor bloke period, because I'm the outdoor bloke, that's where I want to be. But the indoor bloke, or the outdoor bloke, was forced indoors, forced into this thing. So for me, by getting outdoors, getting into nature, I started with the trail running, and that was my way of getting out into places that I'd been into these places for the last 10 years or so, just through work and doing those sorts of things. And as soon as that was cut off, I felt this absence of joy, and it was really, on a deeper level, it's like what I was doing didn't fulfill me, it didn't fill my soul. And so I realized what I needed was that connection with nature, connection with my own wild self, and then that started to fulfill me.
That aspect, I mean, for you to go through that, when you say the outdoor bloke, is that both physical and a metaphor for your mental aspect as well? I mean, it's, I take it you physically like to go up a mountain or go on a trail or do whatever, but also it's the outdoor as in, outside of yourself or outside of your mind, etc. Is it both, or have I read into it too much?
No, that's a good question, actually. It is both, yeah. I think it's thinking outside the box as well. I think that's, so it is physically going outdoors into nature, connecting with the mountain, with the forest, with the trees, whatever it may be. But yeah, you're quite right that it's the outside of the box thinking. And so actually in our modern society, that outside of the box thinking is going within. That's so it's looking at yourself and looking at your own needs, your own requirements.
I see that, I get that. I mean, I suppose because I hear a lot of people, and especially if they've gone through a life transition or, they've been through these things, that actually it's soul searching, right? It's going out. But interestingly, and I suppose where it is here, you say to them, where do you go to recharge? What's your leisure and pleasure? And it's generally up a mountain or in the sea. People tend to go to one extreme or other, right? And this is, I'm seeing a parallel here for yourself, in terms of it's gone out there both to get away, but also then to recharge, or get, not just recharge, but also then to get fired up at the same time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that connection with nature, it's hardwired into us. So you're saying that you're hearing that sort of thing. It is hardwired into us, and that comes back to that original sort of statement I made, was nature is the forgotten requirement for healthy living.
Yeah. Why is it we forget that? Is it just lifestyles, convenience, speed of life? I mean, what is it that we're forgetting?
It's definitely, from my experience and my own thoughts, is that we've created a society where we believe, and this is I think the source of it, where we believe that we as humans know best. We've forgotten that actually nature is boss. We think we are the boss. So we've created all these systems and everything that detaches us from that. So, like the entertainment industry, how we live our lives, like we could quite easily not be physically active in a day. We go outdoors, we go into a building that has recycled air, we're not getting natural light, so we've like on so many different levels, we've actually detached ourselves from that.
It is that aspect. I suppose it's just an unhealthy lifestyle, but then that also probably appeals to the egoic side of us, or to the lazy side of us, that says, yeah, I could be out there getting cold and a bit wet or whatever, or I could be in here all cozy and sort of sitting still and doing whatever, right? So it's a bit of both.
Yeah, and I like what you said there, because actually with modern life, it is quite easy to not challenge ourselves in that way. We can easily not just go through life sort of quite wrapped up in cotton wool, and many people do. But I think that's what I recognized in myself, is that I actually need that challenge. I need that adventure in my life, and I believe we all do. Because again, that is hardwired into us. And this comes to the other element of what I'm involved with now, is this primal coaching. Because this primal, and that is really about getting really back to basics and looking at the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. So as far as I'm concerned, that hunter-gatherer is the purest expression of the human experience. That is, just to give a little brief there, for 2.5 million years, we've lived with certain conditions, that adventure, that challenge. We've had selection pressure as coming onto us as well, environmental factors that cause these pressures. And so we've detached ourselves from that through civilization, basically. And I'm not saying civilization is bad, but we've forgotten certain things because of what we've created at the same time.
At the risk of sounding like an old man, I suppose, I mean, in our generation, and I'm going to put you in a similar age bracket to me, but in our generation, has it not been that, we've gone from a stage of ride your bicycles, disappear, for long periods of time, just the mothering, I'm going to call it mothering noose, the mothering protection area has completely changed, right? So, I mean, now And I'm just wondering, is that then feeding the aspect of, kids are not as used to just disappearing, just, running about in forests, glens, whatever, getting mucky, getting wet, getting cold, getting dry, having fun, is that a part of it, you think? Or is it the sedentary lifestyle? Is it the lazy aspect of us? I mean, what is it, you think? Is it, what's changed?
Yeah. That digital acceleration, the last few decades has definitely accelerated that disconnect that I'm talking about. It's been that disconnect has I think my belief is, as soon as we started introducing agriculture and settling, then we started attaching ourselves from that way of life. But we've always sort of got on fairly well and been quite connected to that organic, natural sort of way of life. And then, but things have accelerated. We've detached ourselves even further from that in the last few decades. And I think that technological age is definitely plays a big contributing factor there.
I suppose, and I always find it interesting, because when you talk about marketing or social media, it's realizing that we are the product. It's like, people go, well, Facebook's free. It's like, yes, because you're the product that people are paying to get in front of. So, you're the product of that, which I always find quite interesting. But I suppose also that it's feeding our ego in terms of the comparison. It's appealing to us. So it's nigh on impossible potentially for a person, because they've got their own free will, and then they've got the entire marketing department of, let's not just pick on Facebook, you've got the entire marketing department of Facebook and Instagram and all the rest. You've got all the behavioralists saying, how can we get you to click this button? What can we do to appeal to you? So it's like one human, which is spectacular, but one human versus multiple humans and AI and machines and everything else. So it's going to be hard, right?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. And because in a way, and this is how I feel, and to some extent, is that I'm going against the grain of society, that mainstream society, and that is obviously challenging. But I think more and more people are sort of realizing some of the things you're talking about. Realizing that actually what we are producing as a society is not actually that good for us as humans. It might be good for making profit, it might be good for corporations, but actually for us as individuals, our health, our wellness, our well-being, you only look around at how messed up things are. Let's be honest, like there's an epidemic of massive proportions in many different areas: mental health, obesity, the other diseases that are out there. Like, we are so far out of balance, so far out of whack. It's unbelievable.
I love this concept of personal rewilding.
Yeah.
I think that in itself is it's a real catch for me. And I was saying, for you, what was the process of doing that? And what are the sort of the hints or tips that actually other people might find useful?
Yeah. Sorry, I had to turn the heater off. Yeah. So for me, I found the starting point for me was to find a catalyst, like this linchpin that's sort of going to motivate and keep you moving in that right direction. So for me, that was exercise. It was running. It was connecting with nature through running. So I am a runner. I'm an ultra marathon runner, run marathons and things. I'm not interested in times. I don't run for a PB, for a personal best. I run to be my best, to be the best version of myself. So again, it's a shift. It's that moving out of that ego mind into yourself more. So that's a starting point really for me, and everyone's journey is going to be different. But then that got me outdoors, the excuse to get into nature, connect with those places. And I know from the time I've spent working with people in these environments, how powerful nature is. You know, just the views, the challenge that does get kicked up. You know, you have to rely on your intuition much more. Yeah, so that exercise was key to me. I also then started getting interested in Wim Hof is quite current at the moment. He does a lot of cold water, is the Iceman. He jumps in cold water, but there's a breathing technique behind it as well. So I got really interested in that. So I started jumping into cold water, doing lots of breath work, meditations, and then that also coming back to the exercise, that really, I became very committed, and that I drew on a lot of motivation and resources I didn't know I had. So that's an important element. So I sort of set a goal to run my first marathon, a trail marathon, which I didn't even, at the time, I didn't even believe I could achieve. Like I wasn't even sure whether I could actually do it. But so that drew a lot of resources into me. So I really cleaned up my diet at that point, because I was like, right, I'm really focused on that. I cleaned up my eating patterns. I moved into this. It's called a fat as fuel. So, because one of the key things in modern life that we've become detached from is that we eat a very high carbohydrate diet, high sugar diet, and we get stuck in this carbohydrate metabolism, which isn't actually natural to us as humans, to that primal organic human. So I started shifting my eating pattern, and then went into this fat as fuel. So I'm tapping into my body fat stores, which is what that primal human would have always done.
Is that what we know is a sort of a form of ketosis? Is that along the right lines?
Yeah, that's yeah, pretty much, yeah. So you're tapping into, by eating low levels of carbs, you allow your body to then go into the body fat stores, which is the ketones. Yeah. So you're powering your body through ketones. So the body doesn't actually need, it only needs minimal amount of carbohydrates, or actually none. It actually makes its own glucose or its through ketones. It can power the brain and the body function in that way. So that there's a that was an important element to the diet for sure for me.
That's really interesting. So I mean, in essence, what I'm hearing is we're eating far more than we need to. We're eating a different lifestyle than the body's used to. I suppose from the Neanderthal man going out and clubbing things, to ourselves, that our diet is incredibly rich and unnecessarily so. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely, and so much so that there's some stat around that through what I've been reading. 2/3 of the food that we eat in modern life wouldn't have been consumed in those Paleolithic times. So it just shows that the majority of the food that we're actually consuming is actually quite foreign to our system. And so that does create a problem, a lot more a problem than we will ever realize at this moment in time.
It is. I mean, I get it. I mean, I myself have a cholesterol problem. I don't know whether it's a problem or what, so it probably, you see how, Stone Age man didn't have packets of crisps. Stone Age man didn't have, there's so much, that we just don't have. So we've introduced this diet through want and consumerism and God knows what else, so. Yeah. So then your transition then to that, trail, doing a marathon, a trail marathon, is that what you call it? Is that the right way of putting it? Yeah. So how was it? How did you find sort of getting to that stage and then actually achieving that?
Yeah, incredibly empowering in the short. It was a journey. I I had to prove to myself, because at that point, the most I'd ran was a half marathon, so 13 miles. So I sort of booked in a few, well, I booked in a 17 miler. And again, that was proving to myself, each step I was proving to myself, I can do it, I can do it. And then the actual event itself was amazing. I was quite well trained, I was positive, felt good. It was a tough event, actually. It was a trail run through central Wales on the coast in the peak of winter, December. So it was cold, had sideways rain. By the end of it, it was like someone turned a shower on, and I was just drenched right through. And I was close to hypothermia in the end, to be honest, but because I didn't have the right kit either, so that didn't help. But like that whole experience of running my first trail marathon, it empowered me. It showed me that actually I have a lot more resources, potential within me that is going untapped. It's going unseen. So that led on to a number of other things beyond that as well.
So is the trail marathon, is it still 26.4 miles? It's the same distance. You've different elevations, I take it. You're going up and down glens and dales, or are you, or what's the?
Yeah, it was, yeah. So it is the same distance, but it was it's up and over hills, mountainous terrain. You know, you're not running on pavement, so it's undulating. You've got trip hazards and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So there's definitely a different type of running training required. You know, you definitely need to be a bit more sure on your feet than if you're just running a road marathon. Yeah, but that is what I'm used to, that environment, that terrain, having like be a mountain leader, so that it just came naturally for me.
I imagine whenever you're actually doing it, I mean, having maybe coming down a mountain, broken into a bit of a run myself, is like you have to be clear of mind, right? You have to be entirely present there, else you can have a few problems with, you know, falling over rocks and God knows what else, right?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. So again, I think that's a key point to make, is that, yeah, for me as well, that running in that environment did force me into that present moment, or does force me into that present moment, being a lot more mindful of what's actually happening and not thinking about all the crap that is going on in life, you know. So
you choose your first one, you got a taste of, you know, a few lessons learned, and you got a taste for it then, right? So what, I mean, it was just a case then, well, let's do another one. I mean, I imagine there's probably a bit of a community builds up as well in that specific niche area, is there? Yeah.
There's quite a big community around trails, trail running, ultra marathon scene as well. Like you say, quite niche. But yeah, I had absolutely no desire after that one initially to do any other event, but then it settles, and it was like I'd learned so much amazing stuff. It had been that catalyst for me, as explained, that I couldn't just get rid of that, you know, because I say this quite often now, that it wasn't the marathon or the ultra marathons I've done since. It's not them events that I'm actually that interested in. That's like a cherry on top. It's all the other stuff. So that event is 20% of why I do it. Everything else is 80% in the training. So it's getting me out to those wild places, being focused on and disciplined with myself to eat the right type of food, to do the things that I know are going to lift me, make me much more healthier and in a better place for that challenge.
And that's, I mean, it's, you know, I suppose in the rewilding process, it is that, isn't it? It's kind of going, yeah, your fancy phone's not going to help you go up a mountain, you know. It's right. It's sort of you versus you, which is, it's a concept I love. It's, you know, the outer you versus the inner you, the voice in your head. It's the, you then need to match your body to match the spirit of wanting to do these things, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's really nicely put, actually. Yeah, yeah, it's realigning yourself to be able to, you know, because they are challenges, particularly some of the ultra marathons I've done. Like, they put your body through a trauma. You know, there's no two ways around it. Like, it is a trauma that you put your body through. So you have to be very healthy, very fit, and, you know, work, and you got to know what you're doing, type thing.
Well, I mean, it's the old concept. I mean, could anyone do it? I know we have sort of, there's some potentially some physical issues or whatever, but, you know, is it possible? Because I'm sure everyone's going to go, God, I'd love to do that. I couldn't do that. All the usual sort of limiting talk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, given time, given practice, given techniques, given correct mentorship, teaching, etc., do you think it's possible for anyone if they really want to?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Because it's all in the mind, essentially. If you get the mind right, then the body follows on. But I think what you said there is the key thing is the desire. If you don't have a desire to do it, it's not going to be right for you, is it? You know, and it's got to, again, I chase that joy. As I mentioned it before, that is a key element, and that's what I see a lot of. I guess people get caught up that, oh, I should be doing a marathon or a 10K or a half marathon or whatever. Like, but it's like work for them. It's not enjoyable. Even the training is not enjoyable. Like, that to me is the sign, okay, maybe that's not quite right for you. Like, find something that really gives you that joy. And with that joyful, playful attitude, then yeah, absolutely anything's possible. But for me, it did take a lot of reframing of my own limiting beliefs, because again, I didn't believe I could do these things. But yeah, so yeah, that's I was going to say something, I can't remember what I was going to say there.
That's all right. I mean, there's a book, and I can't remember the name of the author, but it's Scott Jarrett, and they talked about Born to Run.
Yes, yeah.
A fabulous book. I mean, it's something I read, I'm going to say 2 years ago, but the concept, and I'm probably going to butcher this, but they talk about, so one, it is about sort of almost ketosis type running, you know, whereby you're running on the fat as opposed on the sugar. But I think it was that book or maybe another book they talked about. So they do the ultra marathons, and then there was a lady won it who was actually breastfeeding at the stops as well. I don't know if I'm getting the story right, but it was something like she won the damn thing.
Yeah, I have heard of that. Yeah, I haven't read that book. I've read the Born to Run book, which was a really big inspiration to me. But what you're saying there, the lady, I don't know her name either, but I had also heard that the lady won this ultra marathon event, you know, beating males as well, and then stopping doing breastfeeding as well. Like, yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
It's one of those things, and you kind of go on, okay, she can do that, and which is great, because sometimes the mind works on comparisons. Like, hold on, as you say, like, so female breastfeeding, you know, post labor, any of the above. I mean, it's a traumatic event as it is, you know, without adding a number of those factors onto it as well, right? So
yeah,
it just sort of goes, what's your excuse? You're like, yeah,
that's it, yeah. And what you're saying there, that it taps in to the potential that we actually have naturally built into our system. It's hardwired into our body, this potential that is the fire in the belly that I'm talking about. Like, that is what really interests me, draws me in. Like, I want to push myself to some extent hard, you know, I want to see what I can actually achieve. But and at the same time, I've realized what I can do to some extent, and the benefits and the power of that. And now I want to share that. I want to help others get into that place, that mindset, and in the physical sense as well.
Well, it's like the phases of learning, isn't it? I mean, the first thing is you learn for yourself and you learn how to do it and all the rest. You then come to the point of teaching others. So you learn how to teach, and to inspire and to teach others. And then there's almost the third phase where actually you break new ground. You become the lesson itself, that actually people can almost teach what you have experienced, what you've done, and which is beautiful, right? I mean, that's, if we all did that, give back our positive learnings, our positive benefits, I mean, the world would be a better place, wouldn't it? Would it? I don't know. I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the passions, and I believe everyone's got that something in them, that fire in the belly, like you talk about, and it's just realizing that. But that requires that following the heart, doesn't it? Like following what feels good to you.
Yeah.
And
which is
that doesn't. And coming back to that sort of point, where we've got ourselves is that probably a lot of people, because modern life is head-centered, isn't it? It's like that's the sensible thing to do, is to follow that path, that career, that whatever. But we forget to follow our heart and listen to actually what we want internally, and we've forgotten that, and that's a key point, I think.
It was interesting that there's a guy I follow there, Kyle Wilson, who was, worked quite closely with Jim Rohn, and it's only, I don't know when the transition's made, but I mean, he's very big into marketing, big into books. He marketed essentially Jim Rohn and made him what he was. He's working with so many other people, but it's more and more so now, and I think it's common across where people are now searching, not the finances, not the riches. They're now searching actually to find themselves. So the term spirituality is coming up, not religion, but spirituality is coming up, and sort of going, what's it all about? And I don't know whether as a global collective, we're all saying that. It's going, the pandemic is, whatever your thoughts are on it, it's done a wonderful thing potentially for hitting the reset button or the pause button for many people, right?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think it's, and I felt it. I was furloughed for the best part of 18 months, on and off, so that forced me into a place to really consider my own life, what I want. I was quite tapped in and tuned into that anyway, but I'm seeing that a lot more outside as well. I think it's given people that chance to slow down, to realize, actually, why am I doing that? Why am I stressing myself out? Why am I rushing around? Because again, we're not meant to live like that. The pace of life is too crazy, too hectic. The things we do, we know generally aren't great for us, but yet we do it still. So that there's definitely some key benefits that will come out of this last few years, and I think that's definitely one of them. Yeah,
I think I get a sense that a lot of it is, people sort of thinking they need massive riches, massive fame, massive everything, when actually, I know for a lot of people, it seems, they talk about the Great Resignment, or the Great Resignation, sorry, in America, I think they've coined this phrase, like 25% of people have left their job or something crazy, or reposition, but it's that aspect of that resettling, I suppose, and it's almost linking it back to what you were saying about the amount of food, so saying, oh, I need more food to get up the mountain, it's actually you need less, and you probably just need a better type of food. So it's, the volume is not a problem, and it's not that you haven't got the resources you have, you just need to learn to reuse them in a different way.
Yeah, that's spot on. And actually, as you said that, it reminded me of something as well. A sort of key point is that we don't need to add extra things to our life, because that's what we've done for, really, again, that's probably that last 20-30 years we've been adding more and more, and it's just made us take on more. So actually we need to start taking things away, take that away, and get back to basics. That's that back to basics mentality I'm talking about. Because we've got everything we need here in our body, in our minds, but we've stopped trusting that because we were looking outside of ourselves for something that actually is there anyway. We just need to slow that down and tune in.
Without stating the bleeding obvious, I mean, what's the benefit? I mean, is it down to, you think, is it purely mental? Is it physical? Why do it? Because people might say, well, listen, I'm quite cozy on my couch and I've got my 9 to 5 and I get my Chinese at the weekend or whenever they get right. And they're sort of going, yeah, I'm looking at you and that looks like a lot of hard work, right? So are you better off than us as such,
Yeah. That's a tough one to answer because, I think everyone's different and unique in their own way, aren't they? So, but I feel that you need to feel drawn into something like that to make those changes. Things kick up in your own life, don't they? So for me, it was like things kicked up to the extent when I was that indoor bloke that that made me realize I need to change some things. So I think there is, personally, I see and I sense a lot of discontentment around us. I think if you're honest with yourself, that maybe what you're doing is not actually that fulfilling. It's comfortable, but it's not actually that fulfilling. And really, it does also require that asking of that bigger, deeper question is actually, what do you want? What do you want from your life? Do you know what I mean? Like, and actually, I've done a post, I haven't posted it yet, but talking about contemplating death. Like, at the end of your life, what do you want to be able to say? And there's a concept, there's a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that I know quite well. It sounds like you know about it with your shake. One of the key concepts there is start with the end in mind. And it is so important. Like, and that book talks about contemplating your deathbed. What happens? How do you want to feel? How have you lived your life? Is there going to be any regrets? And that's what that again links back to that uninspired adventurer that's the person I want to be working with, because they have that inside them. They want that adventure. They want to live life to the maximum. But maybe they're just a little bit comfortable, a little bit scared, and that's okay, because we're all, like, there, aren't we? Like, fear is a big thing to sort of overcome, but it doesn't have to be this big thing. Like, quite often, change just starts with a little shift, doesn't it? And that's all you need to do, And so that little shift over a lifetime becomes a big gap.
Well, it's that sort of conscious thinking, isn't it? I mean, if you're constantly saying, well, here's where I want to go, the top of that mountain, this place on the horizon, wherever, both physically and I suppose mentally, what I want to achieve, well, then that gives purpose, and that it brings, as you say, we're doing it with a conscious effort. We have a plan, we have a habit, as opposed to, sure, we'll just see what happens, or yeah, I'll do what I do, and then sure, life will bring what it brings. Which there's a beautiful part about that too, of letting life just be. But I think it depends whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously, really, as well.
Yeah.
I was always sort of curious, the sort of saying, it's like meditation and depression have very similar traits. Both are about silence or quietness, about isolation, about so many things, right? But one is very much seen as a negative and one is seen as a positive.
Yeah.
And why is that? I mean, but both seem to be a regeneration type habit, right? Of just, sort of going into ourselves.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that actually, but that makes a lot of sense. And I think that connects into that last few years where we have been locked down and sort of taken away from people, been a bit more isolated. And I think that's sort of almost in a way that's what's needed on a big global conscious level, like stop, slow down, go into yourself, consider your own life. And it might materialize as the bit of depression or anxiety or whatever at first, but don't run away from that, because that's the opportunity to go within, isn't it? Go inside yourself and work through that. And that's the path I've been on. That's where my rewilding path has taken me now, is continually working through these emotions and like limiting beliefs that keep coming up. And that catalyst for me was the running. But yeah,
I think that's huge, because and especially the life we have, if you have a headache, take a pill. If you have a depression, take a pill. It's all the rest. And then saying, well, you're dealing with the symptom, and yes, it may take away the temporary problem, but like the lump is still in the carpet. It's not gone. The immediate pain is gone, but again, you're not dealing with that. And I know it's like Dr. Gabor Mate and even Stephen Peterson, all those guys, they talk about, we talked about earlier about this trauma. It's locked in. It's not gone. Don't for 1 second think it's gone until you, as you beautifully said there, is taking the time to actually sit with it and saying, listen, I can't bury it. I can't pretend it's not here. I can't sort of forget it. It's always going to be there. And it's like, until you sit with it and actually understand what's behind it, then that essentially will take the power away from it, right?
Yeah, it dissipates it. That is that letting go, isn't it? That letting it be, but doing it consciously. What you're talking about, yeah.
Because I think Stephen Peterson talks about that as, life is one long continuous thread, and if you have a knot on that thread at any point, it's never going away. It's there until you choose to let it go, and it will always be there. Whereas people sort of go, oh no, I've forgotten about that, or that, yeah, no, we don't talk about that. And it's like, it's on the line, it's on the circuit. And I just love that sort of visual concept for people as well, to sort of saying, listen, the rewilding process, I suspect, is part of that. As you say, it's going back and just sitting with it and saying, listen, I may feel shame, guilt, fear, anxiety, whatever, all around this, but it's always going to be there till you choose to let it go. Choose to change.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about your habits then. What sort of habits have you brought into your life and really sort of made it all important for you?
And it's interesting you say habits as well, because habits are the all-important thing. We don't rely on motivation. If you rely on motivation, your motivation is always going to drop down at some point. But if you build those habits, and habits take time to build, 21 days at least, and 60 days for it to really start embedding, and then you've got to keep running with it. But yeah, habits. So first off, let's think about what I'm, just today, for example, there's some habits already. So I first thing I done when I woke up was I done some breathing, conscious breath work. So that's one thing I've probably for the last 2 years, the Wim Hof method breathing. It's quick, short, sharp, flood your body with oxygen. So that is really beneficial to me. But that's sort of 15, 20 minutes, give myself that time. And that's important as well. Give yourself time. We quite often don't give ourselves enough time. And that's that self-love. So conscious breathing. I've been out for a little run. I felt terrible yesterday, I should add. Like just really low. So I knew I needed to break out of that. So I went for a little 3-miler, nice, slow. So I just run consistently. Try and if I don't run, I'll go and walk. I'll get that outdoor time. If I don't want to walk, I'll go outside and I'll go and sit, you know, in tune with my energy levels. What else? Food is an important habit. And so I'm a big fan of intermittent fasting. So I'm still in a fasted state right now. So I haven't eaten since sort of 7 o'clock last night. I'm not hungry, I'm okay, because I'm in that fat adapted state. So which is what we're sort of talking about. And so that intermittent fasting is an important element because that cleans it cleans the system. But then when I do eat, I eat that wholesome foods, meat, fish, eggs, plenty of fat, good quality fats. What else? Veg, fruit, nuts, little bit of dairy. And, you know, from time to time, I let myself go a little bit, you know, because I live in the modern world. But, you know, I might eat some dark chocolate, some moderately, okay? But I know if I go out of alignment, I know how to bring myself back. Course correct, I call it. When I work with my clients, I have the ability to course correct. And that's what I teach my clients as well. So, yeah, there's some key ones there. Cold shower, I forgot to mention that. Obviously, you've got to have a cold shower.
I love the fact, I suppose, I mean, one is just, you know, you're sort of saying like yesterday, you felt awful, you know, and feeling better, you know, and that's, I think a lot of people forget that really, don't they? And saying, it's like someone explained to me the difference between, you know, motivation, inspiration, and transformation. You know, motivation and inspiration, when you're feeling a bit shitty, when you're feeling you just, I don't know, something, your day's not gone well and, you know, whatever's happening, right? You will lose motivation, inspiration very quickly.
Yeah.
But yet, if you've gone through a pure transformation aspect and saying, listen, I accept it, that's part of the journey, that I am both ends of the spectrum. I am both the best version of me and the worst version of me. And that's okay. I choosing to be on the upper side of that. And if I slip back, that's okay. But I then choose to recorrect as opposed to going, I had a terrible day. I'm an awful person. My life's basically over. Let's forget about it. Let's call it quits and job done. Right. You know, so
Yeah.
it's that tolerance of self and a love of self. I think, as he said, it's that loving yourself enough to say, listen, I give myself a chance to have a bad day and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
you got to, I think you've got to have those bad days, like let yourself really feel what it feels like to feel crap. You know, feel that sort of like bubbling up of anger, depression, whatever it may be. Like, let it be there, but don't let it be there too long, you know. So I woke up this morning, I was like, right, today's going to be a different day type thing, you know. And then I go back to my habits. I know these habits will lift me, you know. They are what empower me, that change my thought process. So I'll go and do those. And that's the power of the habit. Yeah.
Do you find, I mean, does it take inspiration from others? Do you need coaching, mentorship, etc.? Do you find that's useful in your life, and why are you doing it for others, or what do you find you need to get motivated?
Nowadays I'm pretty in tune with myself, and ultimately that's where I feel that, you know, that's where I've got to in my stage of the journey. So I sort of know that I'm feeling a bit crappy, so I need to do this and this, you know. So I know my own triggers, my own responses. So, but to get to that stage, yeah, it helps to have people to help guide you. I've worked with many mentors, you know, like coaches and people in the past. I read self-help books, listen to podcasts around the same type of information, you know. So I'm always constantly growing, learning, you know. And I think that's a key element to this as well, you know, like not to stand still, because every day is a school day and we've always got things to learn.
Well, that's true, isn't it? I mean, as humans, as you know, for all our sort of weirdness and all the rest, I think we are designed to grow, aren't we? We're all designed to learn more, hear more, see more, do more, whatever, right? That is something that is fundamentally built into us.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually a key point, because when linking it back to that Indoor Bloke experience again, because I've put some time and contemplation into that. I was in a state of survival, of existence. I was just existing, and in that state of existence, you don't grow, or very slowly. So, my story, I sort of on my website, I call it going from survival to revival, and that is that state of growth, introducing these habits that we're talking about,
which is so key, isn't it? I mean, it is that that survival aspect, and so many people are. I mean, it's there's so many people are just getting through life. They're not living life. They're not doing it. They're just like kind of going, right, I'll go from A to B, and same with my job, same with everything else. I'll get to this age, I'll hopefully have a bit of money. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I'll do this, I'll retire, and then I'll die quietly in the corner, and that's it, right? That
doesn't sound so appealing like that, does it?
No, it doesn't. And that's the thing. Having worked and made money for somebody else for God knows how many years and all the rest, but I think there's also that resetting thing, and I do love that sort of personal rewilding aspect, because it's like, how much do you need, genuinely? So because people going, well, we need more to need more to need more. We need more so that I can have a bigger car. And if I have a bigger car, I have a bigger debt. If I have a bigger debt, I need to get a better job and work harder. And then you kind of go, what's the car doing for you? What's any of it doing for you? And you're going out of here in a Boxer in some shape or form.
Yeah.
You can't bring the BMW with you or whatever. So what's your choice? What's going on here?
Yeah. And that's that, I think, draw of modern life we're talking about, is the draw of the ego, and that marketing genius that we're assaulted by. You want this, you need that. So that rewilding process I'm talking about requires a shutting off of that. I don't watch the news. I just don't. I'm just not interested in it anymore. Not because it's important to know what's going on, but like, it just creates anxieties and upsets me, to be honest. It's like, right, let's focus on number one, and that's a key element there, isn't it? Like, we think that focusing on ourselves is selfish, because that's sort of always what we've been told, but actually it's the most important thing you can do. If you're not looking after yourself, then how are you going to look after other people, your loved ones? So those habits we're talking about are so key. Giving yourself that time, that space, prioritizing yourself. And that's a really key message that I want to bring through as well.
It's, there's a couple of things you said there, and I suppose it's like saying to people, mind your own business. And we see that as a derogatory or a negative term, but it's like, no, genuinely, please mind your own business, because, if you're not minding yourself, then what the hell are you minding? You're in free fall, whatever, if you're too busy looking at someone else. But it's also that aspect of being selfish, recharging self, being the best that you can be, is focusing on that and saying, listen, no problem. Once you've got your own self mastered, then please feel free to come and teach us and tell us more. But be selfish, be self-fulfilled, be self mastery. And then feel free to give to the world. Absolutely. That's your duty, once you fulfilled that self-mastery aspect. So, and people don't get that. As you say, people, I don't know, it's society or whatever, we've led to believe, it's like, oh, don't be so selfish. And it's like, well, how about you come with your cup full first, and then we talk, as opposed to, come and sort of drain from the cup, or take it all away,
But that, and you're spot on. I think, and that's entangled in so much psychological, you know, I think we've been assaulted by, you know, like psychologically through marketing, through messaging that we receive from every angle, you know. So how do you get out of that? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's very tough. But I again, it's probably a point to raise. We have to unlearn, you know, and that's a process I take my clients through as well. Like, unlearn some of the things we've always been told, that we have always thought to be true, because actually there's quite a lot of things that aren't, but we believe to be true. So unlearning is a key part of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Someone pointed out recently, I've 3 young kids, and you know, he's sort of like, oh, what are you teaching them? It's like, what makes you think you're teaching them? Are they not teaching you? And it's like, yeah, okay, I'll take that. You know, they are. And that's the thing. It's like, you know, educationally, you might argue that they don't know as much as me, but in terms of, you know, their emotions, in terms of their wonderment of life, in terms of their learning capacity and all that, they actually know a hell of a lot more than me, you know, that they've not been, you know, as weighed down with all the experiences and the fears and the anxieties and everything of life, because they're you know, they're free souls, right? They're free to be, you know. How wonderful.
I can relate to that. I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and she pushes my buttons for sure, as most kids do, but the amount I do learn from her, like, she teaches me, like, how to if I'm raising my voice at her, she doesn't respond to that, you know, telling her to do this, do that, you know. I've had to really take a step back at certain points to be like, all right, what's not working here? You know, be a bit more conscious of the actions I'm taking. And so she's, in that way, she's teaching me. Yeah.
It's choosing. I mean, and that's so different, right? Because I mean, we're sort of almost a generational thing. It's, you know, yes, we got to cycle our bikes, but we're also told to, you know, sort of almost, you know, the kids are, you know, speak when you're spoken to, and you know, there's so many things. So I don't know, we seem to have gone through this phase, and I get it, you know, with kids, and it's like, now it's like, don't, you know, be very careful of the words you use, very careful of what you say, and, you know, how we limit them, and the beliefs we have. I mean, do you think there is a change? Is there changes coming? Have we sort of woken up as a society as such?
Around what, bringing up children, do you mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, just in terms of actually triggering change in general. So both, I suppose, both the kids and also, you know, societies, you know, sort of, are we? I don't know. Are we looking at our meaning of life? Are we looking at our dad? We're questioning more things, do you think? Or do you think we've still, you know, we're still well stuck in the mud? What do you think?
No, I don't think we're stuck in the mud. I think that's what this last few years has been like. Not just the last few years, it goes on beyond that, really, but it is causing us, you know, this sort of discontentment that we've talked about is in people, whether you recognize it or not at the moment. You know, there is lots of issues going on, and so, but it comes back to, all right, well, what can I do about it? You know, it's like, keep bringing it back to yourself. Like, what's my role in this? Take responsibility for yourself, type thing. And so, and that's how you work through that, I believe. Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, in general, are we pain driven or pleasure driven? I mean, what's more inspiring to people, and what's more long term? You know, what's going to make us learn long term?
Pain or pleasure driven? That's a good question. Probably a bit of both. I think pain's a big motivator, isn't it? Yeah, that really. I think you've got to experience a certain level of pain in your life to then seek the pleasure. I think that's my experience. Feeling that pain, that anguish of, you know, what came from that Indoor Bloke experience I'm talking about. Being disconnected, discontent in my own life.
Mm.
It's just how painful will you let it get? And then when does that trigger come in to then start seeking that pleasure? Because, you know, we can shape our lives through the habits, through what we do on a day-to-day basis, through our own mind, can't we? So once you go through the pain, I believe, enough, you start realizing, all right, I don't want that. So what do you want? And start working towards that. Yeah.
I suppose it is. I mean, having the wisdom to actually, you know, understand that actually pain, you know, everything we're doing, everything we're doing is a choice. You know, even if you're in pain, it's a choice. You're choosing to stay in pain or choosing to not change. You know, because people say, "Oh, I'm stuck here." It's like, no, you're choosing to be there. So let's get this whole stuck per me out of the way and saying, you know, part of you is choosing to be here. Yeah. You know, because this is how we recognize self. And then actually the identity of self that says, you know, we you know, if we're choosing to be in pain, then what are we not choosing? We're not choosing to step into what we're capable of, or we're not doing because of fear, you know. So both can be, and I agree. I mean, both are useful. Both, I think most of society, unfortunately, is pain driven, you know, and that's part of who we are. But then also maybe it's age, maybe it's wisdom, maybe it's, I don't know, it's experience that says we can do this because we get to, which is different. Totally, you know, getting to or having to are massively different in terms of motivations, right?
Yeah. I agree what you're saying there. Like, maybe where we are at the moment is that a lot of people are in that pain-driven way, and you know, sometimes trying to avoid that, but not realizing what you can seek. But maybe that is where I think, to maybe answer your other question, was where we're going. We're moving away from that pain. We've got to work through it, and then we're going to that place where we are seeking the pleasure. We're shaping our lives, taking responsibility for things. And I think it's a process that's got to happen.
Well, does it have to happen? This is what worries me, or does it worry me? I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's. I'd love to say it has to happen, but I think so many people. It's a bit like people. You know, you say how many people live with fire in their belly, and unfortunately, I hate to say it, but it's like my gut feeling is it's like less than 20% actually do what they love to do. They genuinely find their fire in the belly, and I think I could depress the hell out of myself and say it's even less than 20%. You know, people just go through, it's like, I have to do this. This is, you know, I'm stuck here. It's too late. I haven't the resources, all the 50 things, you know, and saying, do you have to change? You don't have to. I really hope you do, but unfortunately, you don't have to.
Yeah, I understand, and I definitely see what you're saying, but I'm quite hopeful for the future these days. Like I do believe that is where we're going collectively, you know, into a world where we are seeking to be more in tune with who we are at that hardwired level that we talked about, and more in tune with our own sort of like passions and inspiration, you know, the fire in the belly you're talking about. I believe that is where we're going. We're just in that, like, a real messy transition on a big level. I believe we're a messy transition at the moment, and it's going to happen. It's going to take years and years to go through this. Yeah.
Do people get you?
No. In short, not really. Some people do, yeah, but yeah. Why do you ask that?
No, it's just, I mean, I asked that a lot, like quite a lot of guests actually, because especially when we're pioneers in a certain area, or we've got to a certain period in our life, it's sometimes we get so far down the rabbit hole, and you can't unsee what you've seen, and then it becomes the gap between sort of people that you know or other people versus yourself becomes so big that actually, people sort of sit there and go on, I either don't get you, or I can't see how I could become what you've become. But it's like, well, hold on, I've led exactly the same journey as you, so it's interesting. Some people say, listen, I don't mind if people don't get me. Whoever needs to get me will get me, and whoever doesn't, and that's okay. And I get that bit too, and saying, listen, yeah, okay, you wouldn't choose to do what I'm doing, but that's fine. I don't choose to do what you're doing, so we're all okay, right? It's just people feel differently about it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think I can relate to what you just said there. A lot of people don't get me, because probably I am, I find it hard to have surface small talk conversations these days. Whereas that's where a lot of people are at, and that's fine, but I'd much rather have these types of conversations, to be honest, these days. And but that is, for me, that's now my challenge, the journey that I want to give back to people, help people see and experience this, is to actually to break it down enough so people understand it. How am I doing with that at the moment? Probably not great. But it's like, that is the journey that I'm on. Really break it down.
And that's good, I mean, but that's part of the thing is, again, it's different levels of wisdom, different levels of understanding that, you look at people will spend their entire lifetime becoming a teacher as such, becoming a motivating. I mean, there's your sad gurus, your Bob Proctors, you name it. I mean, it is literally a lifetime's vocation to help people, and that's okay too. It's I suppose it's, and it does start with liking and loving yourself. I mean, do you like yourself? Do you love yourself?
Yeah, it's taken me a lot of time to get there. But yeah, and have I got some work to do? Yeah, but I do like and I do love myself for sure, and I think that is an important thing.
Yeah, I think as people don't get that, saying is, I love myself enough to forgive myself that actually I know I've work to do. And when I do falter and I do have a shitty day, that I love myself enough to say, listen, it's okay, And there was some statistic. I always find it just fascinating. Is when it comes to taking a course of antibiotics or medicine, there's a higher chance that you will make sure that the cat or the dog gets the full course of antibiotics or medicine than you will for yourself. And it's like, do you not care enough about yourself to make sure it's there? And yet, your furry friend comes in first. It's like, that's bizarre, right? But it's also reassuring that there is an element of service built into every one of us. But I suppose it's what's the intention of service. That's always a different aspect.
Yeah.
Well, what does the future hold for Lewis? What's the intention? What's the plans?
Yeah, I'm very excited about the future. Enthusiastic for sure. So for me, in the distant future, I want to help people connect with nature, to connect with themselves through nature, that sort of thing. Okay, I envisage like some sort of center like a healing center where I can bring people, run workshops, and just retune back into nature. Maybe just using, my background is in bushcraft. That is so powerful, just so overlooked. Building fires, shelter building, cooking on open fires, tuning in, learning about the trees, the plants, that sort of thing. You know, and the uses around them as well, because they're so useful. And when you start learning about that, you start valuing nature as well. So I want that. I want people to go on adventures. I want to be delivering like these real cool adventures. You know, I've been doing them for years myself. I've been taking groups away as well, you know. But I really want to harness that. So yeah, I mean, that's the distance future. In the sort of interim, it's working with people on one-to-one level. That's what I'm doing now. So I'm coaching people one-to-one, getting them, working them through their habits that we talked about, you know, food, exercise, and other lifestyle habits like getting outdoors, getting vitamin D from the sun, you know, loads of other things. Supporting them, giving them that accountability that we need, because it's tough. And I'm also putting on little events as well. So I put on a day last month. It was called the Wild Reboot Day for Men. And that's about just that day was a day out in the Peak District, hopping over boulders and squeezing through holes in the rock. We jumped into the river. We done some breath work, you know, and it was a bringing together of men, like-minded men as well. And that's powerful. That's really important, because that's particularly men. I do feel drawn to work with everyone, but like men, because they're so shut off, I feel. So yeah, and so that's a little bit about what I'm doing. So it's just continuing with that till I get to that healing center.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's all happening, right? It's all just on the way to this. This is the journey that we get to go through to get to our final destination, or you know what our your purpose. I mean, for you, is that your purpose? Is that your, you know, that's the sort of your meaning of your life? Do you think?
Yeah, pretty much. To you know, help people to you know revive body and mind for themselves. That is my purpose. How do I do that? Through nature, through connecting with nature, through reconnecting with our own wild nature, and basically tuning into who you are.
Wow. And I love, even, you know, you talked about the rewilding aspect. It's like you are already wild. You're just, you know, you've just either forgotten it or you haven't tapped it yet, you know, and it's already built in, which is so beautiful for so many people. And so, you know, because they're saying there's so many things I'm not, and it's like, yeah, but there's so many things you are. And if you just knew that, you know, it's taken that time. So, you know, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. What is a bit of a guilty pleasure for Lewis? What would we find you doing if?
A guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
You know, I smoked for about 10 years. So and I don't smoke cigarettes anymore. I'm known to sit around a fire with a big old fat cigar. That's a bit of a guilty pleasure. Yeah, that's probably the big one. Yeah.
Nice one. Sounds awesome. It's like, that's a nice way to be. And do you have a favorite spot? You know, if you are leisure, pleasure, or downtime, I mean, is there a certain area that you always feel drawn to?
Probably a few different areas, really. I mean, I'm massively inspired by the Peak District. You know, I spent a lot of time there. I live on the doorstep of the Peak District. But more closer to home, I actually found, I live by a canal, and so I've run all around the canals and all around the fields and things. I'm only a small town. 2 miles out of town is there's a river by the canal, and during lockdown I just stumbled across it. You know, it's sort of like a bit of a private area, shouldn't really be there, but it's a really beautiful spot. and I've called it Lockdown Sands because it's like a nice beachy sort of bit. So I tend to get there quite a lot these days, just, you know, or just like a little private. I run up there, take my shoes off, jump in the water, do a meditation. I take my daughter up there and, you know, throw stones or whatever. Yeah.
Nice way to be, isn't it? Just to connect to the water and to the land, and just, yeah, and it's nice that it's on your doorstep too. So
yeah.
fabulous.
But I think that's an important point to make, actually, because I think before lockdown, you know, the Peak District or go here, go there, you know, I love going to North Wales as well, the mountains in North Wales, the Lake District inspires me every time I go there. But actually, obviously, during lockdown, you were pulled in. And so I know lots of people were out exploring, and that's obviously what I got. So you don't have to go all around the country, all around the world for these places. Like, look on your own doorstep. Like, there's going to be places around. Go and find it. It's there.
That's it. I mean, there's a metaphor for life, though, isn't it? You know, you don't need to go miles or have millions or do whatever. Yeah, I mean, okay, maybe it's nice and maybe that's part of the journey, but it's also not necessary to have, you know, to have what you have now. So that's a beautiful message.
It is, yeah, and I definitely can relate to that. I mean, I've done a lot of traveling back in the day. I took 3 gap years. That's what I tell people. You know, done a lot of traveling, and then I've worked, done expeditions as well. I've been on like 25 quite considerable expeditions, both personally and professionally, off the beaten track. And that was one thing I noticed. It's amazing to go out to these places and like meet the people that have, you know, particularly like somewhere like Uganda, they have so little, but are so happy with their life. And that was a seed that was planted into me, like, because that was, I just kept asking myself, was like, why are they so happy? Like, we're constantly told we should have this and do this, that and the other, you know. But actually, these people, you know, have quite rough, tough lives. But what I realized they had was that they live much closer to our organic, natural state, close to nature, community, you know, like much closer to that. And so that's been a big influence for me. So, but going and doing all these travel experiences, I realized you don't need to go out there. It's great to do that, but you don't need to go out there to do all that. You can come here. The UK is the best, I think, the best place to go adventuring. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. But again, it's sort of just the resources we have around us. That's, I don't know, there's never been as many opportunities. You know, people say, oh, you know, if I could learn this, it's like YouTube's there. You know, if I could go on a walk, or if I could go on this venture, yeah, you could go on an adventure within, you know, a couple of miles of everyone's home. You know, there's so many opportunities there if you choose, but you have to choose. That's the difference. You know, you may not have the physical, financial, mental resources yet, but that's a goal, right? Why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. That's a goal in itself, you know?
Yeah.
Tell me, if you were to try and describe your fire in your belly in 1 or 2 words, Lewis, what would they be?
Natural potential, primal potential, primal power, probably something along those lines.
I like that, primal potential.
Yeah. And yeah, that's a good one, actually. Good question.
Yeah, it's all, we all have it. Tell us, where can people learn more about you? Where can they find out more, hunt you down, track you down, stalk you, any of the above?
My website is theoutdoorbloke.com. I also am on social media, so Instagram is where I predominantly post. So that's the handle's The Outdoor Bloke. So they're probably the best places. Join my mailing list if you want some more information. I'll keep you posted with things. That's on the website. But then I'm also Facebook, LinkedIn, but I don't use them that much, to be honest. Yeah. But reach out. I want to chat. I want to share. I've got so much to give to people. You know, I'm just at the start of my journey, I feel, and I'm at the place now where I want to give. I want to help. And that's it. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Lewis, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time here today. I appreciate everything else. Is there a final message you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
Get out there. Get out into nature.
Yeah.
Start tuning in to yourself, you know. That nature, getting out into nature is the all important thing, because that slows the mind and that allows you to step away from the craziness that is modern life. Once you slow the mind, everything else follows on, I think.
Yeah, so true, so powerful.
Yeah.
Lewis, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you. And until the next time, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Pete. And I really appreciate the time, the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.